I've been enamored by single-speed mountain bikes and their riders ever since I first saw them as a kid attending my dad's cross-country mountain bike races. But it wasn't until long after I myself got into mountain biking that I finally bit the bullet and traded 12 gears for one. And the reason it took me so long to do this is because I was intimidated. I had no idea what gear ratio to use, and the internet made it seem like if I picked the wrong one, I was gonna be screwed for life. I was also worried that I was gonna lose not only climbing performance, but descending performance as well if I switched to a single speed.
But now, I've been riding single speeds for close to a year, and my only regret is that I would have started sooner.
So my goal today is to make essentially like a beginner's guide to single speed mountain biking. Everything I wish I would have known before I made the switch, and nothing that you don't really need to know because, let's be real, it's a single speed. Let's not overcomplicate things. So let's start by diving into what's arguably the most intimidating part, and that's gear ratios.
I'm currently in Bend, Oregon, which is pretty much a single speed paradise. It's pretty hard to find pitches that are much more than 10 or 15%. And the gear ratio that I've chosen to ride on this bike reflects not only that, but my bike itself, my riding style, and my fitness, or lack thereof.
And that's why it's so hard to research your way into choosing the best gear ratio for you. There's just too many factors that vary between every single rider. But the good news is it's super easy and relatively inexpensive to change your gears. And it's actually something that I do on a fairly regular basis. At the bike park, no worries. I'll just take off my 20-tooth cog and put on this 14-tooth cog here, and that gives me plenty of speed to hit, dirt jumps like this. So instead of wasting my breath telling you what gear ratio you should run, I'm instead gonna go ahead and share with you guys the best formula that I've found when talking about gear ratios, comparing them with other riders, and choosing what setup you use on your bike, and we'll leave it at that. Gear ratios are a super simple formula. All you're doing is you're taking the number of teeth on your chainring and dividing that by the number of teeth on your rear cog. Now, for me, I'm running a 30-tooth chainring and an 18-tooth cog. So if I do 30 divided by 18, I get a gear ratio of 1.7. And that's great and all, it's definitely nice and simple, but it fails to take into account one very important thing, and that is wheel size. And that's why I think the idea of gear inches is more helpful than just a straight up gear ratio. Gear inches is found by taking your gear ratio, so in my example, 1.7, and then multiplying that by your wheel size. So my Stanton Switchback has 27.5 inch wheels, so I do 1.7 multiplied by 27.5, which gets me 45.8 gear inches. Now, if I had a 29-inch wheel and I just took this 1.7 multiplied by 29 inches, in that case, I would get around 48 gear inches. Now, why this matters is that gear inches, once you multiply it by pi, should be how far your bike moves with one complete pedal stroke. So if my math is right, one pedal stroke on my bike with a 27.5 inch wheel should get me about 145 inches. Let's see if I'm right. Yep, 140 inches right there. And if I would have been on a 29-inch bike, I would have probably gone about 5 to 10 inches further than that. And since that distance is proportional to speed, that's why on a 29-inch wheel, some people say that it goes faster. You're actually putting in more effort to still maintain that speed, but yeah, you're gonna get further per one pedal stroke, which is why on a bigger tire size, like a 29-inch wheel instead of a 27.5 or even a 26, you're gonna tend to find an easier gear ratio in order to maintain the same riding feel, or in other words, gear inches.
All right, I don't know about you, but all that math is starting to get a little confusing. So to summarize, I recommend using gear inches to choose your gear ratio and try to land somewhere around 45 gear inches. But if you don't get it right first time, don't worry about it. It's super easy to change. And if that's reassuring news to you, then I'd appreciate if you just go ahead and like this video and maybe subscribe to our channel. It just helps other people find it. Right now though, let's go ahead and move on and talk about some of the other bike setup changes that you might want to make if you're switching to a single speed.
First things first, you need to figure out how you're going to tension your chain without having a derailleur. Now, if you're lucky, you might have a bike like this RST Wildcat that has sliding dropouts, in which case you'll just pull back your chain until you have about 1/2 inch of play up and down and you're good to go. The rest of us though are gonna need to use some kind of chain tensioning device, kind of like what I have right here on my Stanton switchback. That's the DMR STS chain tensioner. And there's plenty of other tensioners like this on the market. Some, like the STS here, that apply the tension to the axle, and then others that apply the tension up by the chainring. One last option is something called a magic gear ratio calculator, which in theory, if you plug in your chainstay length, it'll give you 4 or 5 different chainring and cog combos that should allow you to run a single speed without needing to use any kind of chain tensioning device. I actually tried to set this bike up with that, which has a 415 millimeter chainstay. Went through several different chainring and cog sizes, but can never get one that fit just right. The chain was either a bit too long or a bit too short. So by all means, try out that Magic Gear calculator, but I don't think it's gonna work on every bike. You might have noticed by now that I don't have a dropper post, and that's because 90% of my riding is spent out of the saddle. And speaking of saddles, I'm actually not even running a proper mountain bike seat. This is actually a BMX seat. It's the signature seat of Mike Aiken, who's my favorite BMX rider of all time, and so just kind of throws it back to my roots and the thing that gets me motivated to ride. Now, this is obviously more of a personal preference. I've actually ran dropper posts on single speeds before, and I may go ahead and put one on this at some point, but right now I'm enjoying the reduced weight, and actually, because I'm vain, enjoying even more the super clean cable routing I have up front.
The next piece of bike setup advice I want to give you is tire choice. And man, does it make a big difference. I currently have a pretty fast rolling tire on here. It's the Bontrager XR4. It's a lighter weight trail tire, has really low rolling resistance. I actually have a full review on this tire that I'll link in the video right here if you want to check it out. But if you're running a big, heavy, grippy tire, you're going to be hating life on a single speed.
Other similar tires are the Maxxis Recon and Specialized Ground Control. Now, if you live in an area that has a lot of really steep and loose terrain, my first question might be, why are you switching to a single speed? But from there, I would say at least going with a lighter, faster rolling tire like this in the back, and then maybe riding something with a bit more grip up front wouldn't be a bad way to go.
Regardless of gear ratio or tire choice though, you're still gonna have to get pretty damn good at putting the power down, especially on steeper pitches like this. And to me, the pedaling technique that's required is pretty different than what I'm used to on a traditional geared mountain bike. It actually feels a lot more like a BMX bike. So if you have experience riding BMX or maybe fixies or some other kind of single speed or fixie gear bike, then it'll probably come a little bit more natural to you.
Now, obviously, pedaling is usually pretty lower body dominant, which is why I was super surprised when after riding my first time on a single speed, my back was sore for days. And that's because getting up steep climbs on a single speed really requires you to engage your full body. Yes, you have the cyclical motion of your legs, but you need to pair that to a push and pull with your arms. An analogy that a friend gave me that I think makes a lot of sense is pulling on a sock. You push with your leg while pulling with your arms. That's essentially what you're doing while you're pedaling on a single speed. So try that the next time you're out on a ride. As your left foot goes down, your left grip should be going down as you're pulling up with your right hand. And then vice versa, as your right foot's going down, you're gonna be pulling up with your left hand. And all that climbing technique is great and all, and it did get me to the top of the climb, but that's not to say that I didn't humble myself and have to walk a few sections of trail. And that's actually what my next tip is, knowing when to walk.
Regardless of tire choice, gear ratio, or even fitness, you're eventually gonna find a climb that's gonna humble you. And instead of wasting all your energy trying to put every last watt down through the pedals, just eat your humble pie and push your bike up the hill. Your buddies on their geared bikes, they might laugh at you, but if they're already in their Eagle gear, chances are your walking pace is gonna be faster than them anyway. And speaking of speed, generating and maintaining downhill speed was another big concern of mine and kept me from switching to single speed years earlier. Because I love jumpy flow lines like this, and a lot of them require pedaling throughout to maintain your speed. Or so I thought. Turns out on a single speed, you just need to learn how to maintain your momentum. Let's see if I can hit this big jump without any pedaling. Ew! Overshot it, in fact. You don't need a pedal. Now, this berm right here is a great example of what I'm talking about. Thanks to the trail workers who came through and patched this up, but there used to be a ton of braking bumps through there, and that's because riders will break into the berm and break through the berm and then just get on their pedals to maintain speed for the rest of the jumps. Or you can work to improve your cornering technique, and then you're able to hit even the big features without ever needing to pedal. And the same goes for pumping as well. Flow trails like this are littered with rollers, and as tempting as it can be to just like huck those to flat, learning how to pump them and actually like generate speed, not just maintain it, will make you a much faster rider. And of course, that's gonna apply to more than just, you know, jump trails like this. Make you a quicker racer and just make your rides a better time.
Maintaining momentum on the climbs is just as important. Whether you're going through tight switchbacks or techie sections like this, learning how to maintain your speed through it is gonna save you precious seconds down the trail. And yeah, you can learn all of this stuff on a bike with gears, but learning it on a single speed forces you to learn it faster, because you can't just shift gears and get out of poor technique. Not only are single speeds a ton of fun, but they're also gonna give you a crash course in riding technique and bike setup faster than just about anything outside of a private coach. If you're thinking about switching to a single speed, then take this video as a personal invitation. I really don't think you'll regret it. And of course, as many of you probably know by now, I love responding to any of your questions or comments in the comments. So if you've got some of those for me, please go ahead and leave those down there. And while you're down there, if you would please like this video and subscribe to our channel so you can see more hardtail, single speed, and just general mountain biking content. That would be awesome. After you've done that, grab your bike, whether it's a single speed or you're about to turn it into a single speed, go for a ride, and hopefully I'll see you on the trail.